Welcome back to Kintsugi Heroes, helping people tell the stories they need to share so you can find the stories that you need to hear. In this episode, John Millam is joined by Karen Humphries, an advocate and motivational speaker living with rare cancer and Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. She shares her story of growing up with undiagnosed health challenges, facing ongoing complex conditions, and learning to adapt through frequent changes in her life. She describes how she built a supportive care team, found strength in her community, and learned to work with her doctors rather than against them. Despite many setbacks, Karen continues to create meaning in her life and helps others by sharing her lived experience. Enjoy this episode with Karen Humphries.
So, Kintsugi Heroes listeners, welcome back to Kintsugi Heroes Stories That Matter. And today we have a story of somebody who has got a lot on her plate, and but also she has a track record of achieving a lot, right, as a consequence of her circumstance. Almost as Maya Angelou has said, and I've often quoted, if you want to find your purpose, look to your wound. So welcome, Karen Humphries.
Welcome. Thank you, John, for having me.
Yeah, well, it's wonderful to have you. What a story, Karen. When I say find your purpose, you are an advocate for cancer and complex cancers, so rare cancers. You're an advocate and motivational speaker and a lived experience speaker of someone who has not just survived, and traveled the cancer voyage, but also someone who has, I hate to use the word. What is the word? Chronic conditions, genetic,
Yes.
lifelong.
Yes.
I just don't like the word chronic, but obviously lifelong conditions, genetic and otherwise. And there's quite a raft of physical challenges you've had during your life. But so, Karen, as you sit here and as we invite you to share your story with Kintsugi Heroes, did you know, little Karen, did she know what was ahead of her?
Definitely not. But the childhood I had, we were always on the move, and I had to learn to adapt to my environment. So having that upbringing allowed me, and also an Irish upbringing as well, because my parents were Irish, and I've lived in a war-torn country when I was 19 in Northern Ireland. I feel that that's really given me strength to deal with the things that I've had to deal with in life.
So you were born in Ireland or born in...
I was born in England, and we came out here as I was 5 months old, but I lived in Belfast when I was 19, and I lived in England for 9 years as well in my 30s.
Wow.
And I traveled to Ireland as well. And I had a beautiful trip there 2 years ago, which was very healing after my first diagnosis of cancer before I unfortunately relapsed.
Right. So you were a young person. You had medical conditions, but you didn't really understand or know or realize. So what was that like? Were you just confused? Did you feel like you were different? How did that manifest?
I definitely felt like there was something different. My mother took me to a doctor with a mother's intuition, knowing there was something wrong. I didn't crawl at all. I sat on my bum basically until I was 18 months, and then I walked. And the doctor had said that to my mum that, look, she's got brothers and sisters. She's probably just a bit lazy, but mum knew there was just something not right. So I'd be clumsy. I would fall a lot. I had a lot of gastrointestinal issues with severe vomiting, things like that. So, but I was active as well. And I think with the hypermobility, the other condition's called Ehlers-Danlos hypermobility, which is a connective tissue disease.
You'll have to slow down on that. It's
okay.
So it's EDRS or
EDA. They call it EDS. Ehlers-Danlos hypermobility syndrome. There are different types. I have the hypermobility syndrome, and for me, it's mostly been in my gut, but it is in my joints as well. Some people will dislocate 200 times a day.
Wow.
I have, so I do my joints. So the connective tissue holds your body and organs together.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, with somebody born with this genetic condition, it does not do that. So your body's very vulnerable. So not having moving around a lot meant that I wasn't actually picked up, and it was another rare disease as well as the rare cancer. So, you know, it caused me a lot of issues in my teenage years, especially in my 20 years where I came close to dying. I was 23 years old. I was 24. I'm 43
Mm.
kilos. I couldn't digest food.
Well,
People thought I was anorexic,
mm.
and I was no way anorexic. I recently found out that my part of my pancreas was deformed. I have pancreatic enzyme deficiency, among so many other comorbidities because of this other condition. So it's now, being a little bit more understood, but I feel because of the rarity of it, I was just misdiagnosed, unfortunately, and I'm not blaming any doctor.
Why
It's
not?
because I feel that the empowerment is when we can come together with doctors and we both sit and we walk together. Having a rare cancer and another rare condition, my doctors didn't know what to expect my first round of cancer, but I did actually excel through it and I was able to get into remission. Most people do die within 6 months. I'm now nearly 40 months ongoing. I am not in remission. It's incurable. But I just don't feel that it's right to blame a doctor. I just feel that the power is in educating doctors and my doctors. I've got about 22 doctors and allied health people that walk alongside my journey every day with
That's a big
every.
care team. You need a
It is.
bus to carry your
I
care
do.
team
It's a
around.
it's a
Yeah.
full-time job, and they are my village. They give me
Right.
strength, and I give them strength to keep on going. We are creating a new textbook.
It's interesting just from, my experience with some chronic condition and, say, I had sepsis. There's a
Hmm.
sense of you're not, as a patient, I would say sometimes it's very difficult to be seen.
Yes.
Right, to be part of it. And when you walk in with something that isn't easily classifiable, you'll
Hmm.
often get a bias applied. So, what you look like or what you say or where you come from. And, like doctors are human and they'll apply a bias. And all of that's understandable. What I find difficult, and it would be something you would have experienced, I'm sure, in that they insist on their correctness and they believe that they are the final arbiter. And it's very difficult to have a voice in your own care. So you're walking in with these rare presentations. How on earth did you feel like you had some sort of voice in this?
Unfortunately, at times I didn't feel to be seen, but I feel like it's finding your team, and that's one of the most empowering things I, have been able to do is find different people that specialize in somewhat, even if they have a little bit of knowledge, and then they're willing to, go and learn. And that both our egos are off the table. And I actually say that to people on my new team that
You interview doctors now?
I don't interview them. It's like a good marriage. And, the first person you date isn't necessarily going to be the right person. They might, what you were just saying, that interaction might be the same as when you
Yeah.
walk into a doctor's office. I do sit with them and just say, you know, I understand that my situation is complex. It's challenging. You might not know everything, but let's just walk together and pave a new, road together. And just, I'm not blaming you. Just walk beside me.
Mm. I wonder, given that you're, often there's a degree of, anxiety and pain is a huge fog, to work through. How, and, we're told as patients to have boundaries and to set them and hold the medical professions and to account for that. How do you do that? How would you say someone who like you, is just coming into having to deal with something that's say, multidimensional or complex like your situation, how would you get your team sorted?
Well, one of the greatest advice was when you're feeling like maybe not in a crisis with your health, to try and find your village and your people. And unfortunately, I know, there is money factors and things
Yeah.
like that. My ex-husband and I had to spend a lot of money trying to, over 200,000 to try and getting me diagnosed and the right people and the right physios. It's just a process of keep on knocking on doors, you know, and I'm just so blessed, as I said, that I have found a good care team. I think it's just I'd give advice is just not giving up and knowing that if you know there's something wrong, which I always did
Mm,
instinctively,
mm,
even with the cancer before I was diagnosed the first and second time,
mm.
um, grounding yourself in that. And I just think not taking it personally as well. I think we have to step back from our disease, and we're not our diseases,
No.
but there has to be some respect for doctors. As you said earlier, doctors are human and they can't know everything. Like for my conditions, they might have had 2 minutes at school learning.
Mm.
Um, and I think just going in with a bit of compassion, understanding where they might come from and where you're coming from,
Yeah.
and just keep on knocking on doors,
Yeah.
until you find the right person that actually says, I actually believe you, and I feel that this could be the issue. And that is actually willing to do a whole set of tests and look at you as a holistic being. And
Mm,
my team look at me as a holistic being and not just Karen with EDS, Karen with a rare cancer.
mm.
When I have been in hospitals and not my doctors, I have been looked at like you're dead. You're going in that ground and it's going to be soon. And then, when they've seen me in the corridor hall at the same hospital,
Hang on.
they're looking at a ghost because
Yeah.
I should be
Why are
dead
you
and I'm
still
not.
here? Yeah.
And I'm
Yeah.
not. And I have worked with my beautiful care team, had chemo, immunotherapy, multiple surgeries, and this will be ongoing for me for life. And with my other before cancer, I had to find peace with the Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. That had nearly killed me twice. And, I've done speeches and things like that with training doctors on, I had a colostomy 15 years ago because, my body was have an inability to digest food and a lot of issues. So I just feel that I can take my power back and maybe train doctors and
Mm,
rather than being angry and just look at them for how it must feel for them telling someone that they have 6 months to live. How do they feel? I look at it from the counseling perspective of what I've studied as well. That's really changed me. Was I always in that perspective? No, but I definitely am now. I just feel that we can together, you know, um, yeah. And also the power of something greater than us. If you believe in prayer or meditation or good vibrations, just holding that hope that you will find the right people as well.
mm,
I really feel that I've held that very dear to my heart, and that has really given me strength over many, many years to just believe and have people in your community, and whether that be your partner or a family member or friends or your church or
mm,
other people around you. I think your village is more than just your medical team. It's you know other people in your community that you can come together. I don't have a lot of family close to me. So for me, going through all of this, I've actually had to find my
mm.
community as well. And they've been medicine. They've been medicine.
Yeah. Well, that's it. Yeah. Like one thing I note is, in your world with, such, those conditions, they've got amazing names. But there's
Eagle
um,
syndrome. Yes.
Eagle syndrome.
So yes, I actually have to, and I've got other things as well. I've actually got like a 9-page health resume, and
So, like, you're overwhelmed with labels,
I
right?
am, I am, but I'm not that label. I'm not that label. And with Eagle syndrome and some other deformities on my neck because of the severe hypermobility and issues, I actually have to look at a person like a deaf person. And even when people look at me and I tell them like what's going on for me, they just go, but you look so normal. But I have to keep up over 10 or 12 hours of rehab
Yeah.
every week, mind, body, spirit rehab to keep myself just functioning at somewhat level that a normal person just takes for granted.
Yeah.
You know, even being able to handwrite, it's taken me, my physio, to color in a coloring page. It took me 8 months to do. That was 6 years ago. It took me to relearn how to write, to relearn how to walk again. And, you know, I have to wear neck braces. My first degree was done with invigilators coming to my home because I was housebound
Yeah.
because of the severe gut issues that I had and joint issues. Yeah.
So it's an interesting perspective. You know, when we medicalize, right, I find that there's a sense that people are not normal, right? Because of, they are pathologized, right? If there's doctors, then there must be a reason for the doctors. That's because you're broken, and being broken isn't normal, right? Like, and yet having, you are who you are, despite the labels, regardless of it, right? That doesn't make you not normal, right? So, like, why do we, it must be quite isolating and at times a very difficult exercise in adding yourself to the sort of spectrum of normal life.
Well, one of my doctors recently said that his wife had said, "Why don't you give this up?" And he said to me, "It's because I said to her, it's because of these beautiful patients that come into my life and they have so much complexities but yet they still just adapt to life and they get on with it.
Mm,
You know, they're not, it's no way, their life is no way normal, and I've had psychologists, not my psychologist, but other people say to me, oh, your life's like a train wreck. And I remember writing for a competition about that. And my life is not a train wreck. Every day when I eat my food, I extend gratitude for the food I have before me, the roof I have over my head. I don't live on very much money. I've had to find happiness in a one-bedroom room on very limited money. And, you know, having multiple chronic health issues has changed my life. But I have had to consistently work on that. And that's my passion in helping patients
mm.
and also bringing doctors together as well so that we can work together rather than say, you know, we could have a war, patient doctor war. That's not going to help. We need to come together.
Mm. Yeah, it's a very strange idea. I was listening to a podcast where they were talking, where the psychologist was talking about how you have a broken leg. That doesn't negate the good quality conversation that you have, or having something different doesn't change the your ability to contribute in other areas. So
No.
90% of your contribution is normal, but if 10% of your life is managing something different or something unusual, you shouldn't be defined by that 10%. Is that how you feel?
Definitely. But I've had to really work on that. I've had to do chronic pain courses. I've had to dive very deep with my psychologist into re-looking at how I see myself in society because I feel
Mm,
the society has made me feel like I'm nothing when you lose your identity to work. You know, for me
mm,
to even think about going back to work, I have to be very creative because I can't sit on a 9 to 5 job
mm,
because of dislocating something. So I definitely feel and I hear the chronic health community with the heartache that
mm,
they feel for not to be seen and losing your identity. But it is something that we can take back. And studying postgrad counseling, I had to unpack my life suitcase. They made me justify why I had put everything in my life
mm,
suitcase. And then I had to repack everything. And I did a lot of essays and I'd studied a lot on chronic health. And a lot of it was also about cancer. So I believe I was actually taught that, and some of my doctors has actually said that you might not have survived hadn't you studied that.
Mm.
So I had a good understanding of some things that was well backed up with research as well. What helps somebody survive um, longer when they're going through a chronic illness or cancer, and that might be like having a spiritual belief, exercising, doing creative therapies, which I'm very big on. And the creative therapy unit I did study through that course was very profound. It actually really brought out a lot of the trauma that I was
Mm.
trapped in. I was trapped in trauma for so long. And until I found my tribe of health people and holistic people as well, I feel that I was drowning. So I can completely understand other people going through chronic health issues, but I want them to know that there is hope
Mm.
and there's free education at the libraries.
Mhm.
There is free courses like the East Centre at Macquarie University where we can empower ourselves. It
Yeah.
doesn't cost a cent. It's just turning up for ourselves, even if it's just getting out of bed and just saying, I got out of bed today.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Fair play to you.
Well, like when you talk about courses, well, crikey's now with online, learning is a very different model
Mm,
these days. You mentioned open universities before. Like, I did a course, The Science of Happiness, taught by from edX online with the very people who invented positive psychology, Kahneman
hmm
and Goleman and people like that. So, yeah, it's an extraordinary resource out there if you want it. That that said, it's very difficult sometimes to participate fully to even if you are impacted, as you said, chronic pain management can be an overwhelming task for a person, right? So working through having that commitment to participate in a world that doesn't welcome you or make it easy,
hmm
that's an extraordinary thing to do. What made you good at that? And why do you think so many others are really they grift away and do their best to reach out to a community that it makes it very difficult for them sometimes?
I feel in schools, and a lot of people might say this, we should be educated on resilience at schools. Look how we all dealt with COVID. A
Yeah.
lot of people drank and they overate.
Oh, there's so many issues
And,
popping up
and
nowadays, isn't
I
there?
know,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I liken it to COVID for somebody with a chronic health condition. People got out of COVID. A chronic health person that's living with a chronic health, they're never
Yeah.
gonna,
Yeah.
I couldn't even have coffee out. I was literally housebound. I had to take 15 Imodium just to get to my physio appointments. That was my life for many years.
Mm.
It was just um profound. But sometimes I get brain fog, John, so you'll have to
I know.
bring me back, please, to that question because I'm having a brain fog moment
Well,
now.
it's that very brain fog, our brains and our bodies may sometimes put obstacles in the way of us participating fully in the normal stream. So what keeps you trying? You're an advocate now. You're spreading the word. You're taking your experience and turning that into influence, right, on policy and services.
Mhm.
Why is that important? Why are you driven to do that? Why do you keep going, keep trying to break down those barriers?
I could easily sit back and be passive, but there is a saying that if you want to be the change, be the change you want to see.
Mm.
And what I have seen hasn't necessarily been working.
Mm.
And I have done so much work. There has been so much grief, so much disenfranchised grief that people might not even understand, and we don't look at. I just feel that through all the work that I've done and not having children, which has totally, utterly broke my heart,
Mm.
that I can mother the world in a
Mm.
different way. And that's my contribution to the world by showing up and showing the world that there is a way, a different way, and we need to walk back to ourselves to find that as well. And again, connect to the villages that really help us to build our strength, to find that resilience in ourselves, to not let this and I'm not about the second diagnosis, which I realized I had stage 4 all along for the last nearly 40 months. People say you're in a fight. I realized that I wasn't in a fight, and after I was diagnosed, it was like a year ago, and I was diagnosed with another 7 tumors in multiple organs. It wasn't looking good. I had to look at myself in the mirror and say, I love you, Karen. I had to change how I really spoke to myself. And it really boils down to the relationship we have with ourselves. And I remember being 17, I was a high school dropout. I changed my life. I went back and did year 10 at night. I was working 6 days a week and then educating myself through year 12 that way as well. And I read something called Heal Your Life by Louise Hay.
Yeah.
Yes. And it was a defining moment. And I just believed, and from then I started education. And I said to you earlier, my auntie said to me that education opens doors. So I just know that if people just read a book or listen to a podcast, because I have trouble reading a book. I have to be very adapted because of my neck, how I read books but there's other means now, and I think we just got to keep on showing up for ourselves and just taking steps to then maybe, you might want to be an advocate yourself. And the more voices are out there, the more that we will be heard. And, even at being at uni and I need a note taker and, them not listening to me that I need a note taker. For me to sit and write for an hour is a very huge challenge. To go to a 2-day workshop, it takes months with my psychologist and physio for me to build that up, whereas some people roll out of bed and take that for granted. So maybe I can, by sharing my story, which I'm just getting started at doing, I will inspire others with, limited abilities in different ways to rise up within themselves and go, you can be seen and you're valued and you're a very valued person in society.
I'd like to talk a little bit in a minute about your personal experience of illness, right? But at the moment, I find I'm drawn to ask about, identifying, you mentioned, having support as a disabled person, right? So you were disabled by your illnesses, right? Which is another label, and it's a label that has a whole set of conditions attached to it, So you can be, people look at you and say, you look so normal. That in itself is a sort of indicating that, they believe, if you're disabled, you should look a different way, right? So how do we deal with the stigma that insists on separating people based on one aspect of themselves?
Again, maybe just keep on raising our voices and showing up. Like I had one person say to me, you're the epitome why somebody would get yelled at for using a disabled toilet. Now, having a colostomy, if I need to do a bag change, I actually need a toilet that has a sink. Now, some of these toilets in Sydney, there's no water. The taps are outside, right?
Yeah, that's terrible. Yeah.
They're not thinking, I need a disability parking space. I have worse days than others. And especially with chemo, some days I literally couldn't even get to the toilet. So why should I be abused or anyone like me? I think it's just, I'm just going to have to keep on showing up, and people are as well, and voicing our, concerns and shouldn't I, present myself nice in the world and dress in color? What should a cancer person look like? People keep on saying to me, but you don't look sick. But what does a cancer patient look like? My hair's growing back. You can't see it, but I lost half my hair. And I have pictures where you can see all the different lengths. And they don't know all the scars on my body. They don't see that, you know.
Does it hurt? Like each, oh man, yeah.
The hurt, I can't tell you, even after having a colostomy, I told two people, and it was like as if I was a disgusting person.
Yeah.
That trauma, absolute trauma I lived in for many years. I wouldn't even wear a dress, John.
Yeah.
I can't tell you how I felt. And I've only been able to come and talk about it in the last few years. And I literally last year I went to a lifelong ball and I wore a dress
Oh, wow.
and heels. Now, wearing heels is something that I lost the ability to do. And my physios, it took 5 years for me to do, and I was able to wear those heels. And it was a special shoe called Frankie Fours. And my podiatrist says, I want you to write a letter and tell them, what,
Mm.
because this is why they've had shoes like this.
Yeah.
Even there's a beautiful lady called, she's got a vanilla blush. So, like, that's for ostomy underwear. And
Wow.
that is making someone, because it was only Bridget Jones's underwear.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, like a prosthetic bra.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
has a pouch, and there's also special bathers and things like that for people with stomas. And I actually, for our local area district, I got stoma bags covered. So if somebody was having
Yeah.
made by the Pink Ladies, so that everybody would have dignity,
Mm.
for anybody that would have a stoma. So so if anyone's having like a scan, they actually have some dignity. But these other underwear are beautiful and they make you feel feminine.
Right.
And, going on a little bit of tangent here, I've often said this to many politicians and things like that. I don't know whether I'm being heard. It's 10 sessions that we get on the mental health plan is not enough when you lose a part of your body. The trauma. And, as I said, I've studied a lot of this as well. I know that people can come back.
Of course.
Yeah, from this, and a lot of people, and I'd studied this on with research with my uni. A lot of people will never come back. And I liken it to this is the mainland, which is the normal
Mm.
world. And then I've been washed off to an island, and then the tsunami's coming.
Mm.
And that my beautiful village that I found have got me, put me on the island, build a bridge, and actually literally carry me over the bridge for many years or many, years. And now I'm able to walk over the bridge
Yeah.
myself back
Yeah.
to the mainland. And I mainly stay on the mainland.
But
Sometimes I go back to that.
yeah.
And I hope people might be able to understand that as I start to talk a little bit more about that with
Yeah, I
my,
really like the idea, particularly of being a part of the population, but maybe just having to dwell slightly separately due to considerations that they other people don't seem to accommodate or understand. It's interesting because you talk about recovery, right, and getting back, but in many ways there's no getting back, is there? Like it's other people's ideas of life that they're asking you to come and comply with. When you go through something, you're changed, so you can't go back. So you know they talk about person-centered care.
yes,
So how do we encourage the medical profession to start with, and then the population at large to accept variation as being, part of the process of getting through life. Right? None of us, Kintsugi heroes. Kintsugi is the art of putting pottery back together with
love it.
gold, and then believing those scars make it more beautiful.
Yes.
How is that any different to humans?
Well, Carl Rogers is the person-centered person. You might have heard of him.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, so I think we just got to start with conversations like this, John. And I was just talking to a lovely lady who's an advocate as well. We both volunteer at the Royal North Shore Hospital. We will be pitching maybe some training for doctors where patients and that was always my goal anyway, to do it even before the cancer. And it doesn't matter what a paper says about my cancer. And, I just get up and live my life.
Mm.
But I suppose it's joining this conversation and just turning up and asking for this patient-centered care. And, just knocking on the doors again, you will find the right doctors that are willing to do that. But we have to also turn up and be active patients in our own care and ask for the care that we want.
Yeah. You mentioned Louise Hay. Oh, and because Rogerian, care begins with that idea of unconditional positive regard, which means, people are different from who or what they do, right? So I love that idea because, that's the onus on the people who are caring, not the people who need care. And I think that's a huge difference, right? I would say, and maybe you have a perspective on that, that as people with challenges, physical and mental and emotional challenges and social challenges as related to all of these conditions, we're blamed for that, right? We are actually, considered at cause for our own inability to not be well. Have you felt that?
Yeah, when I was overweight, I was told, and it was obviously the start of cancer. No, I did put crap in my body. Like I just did. Now I'm limited to 46 foods, and the foods are very, very good. But I did have indications that I was either, as I said, anorexic or I'm overweight because I don't look after myself. I had gone through IVF, failed at IVF as well. And yes, I did eat wrong foods.
Have you seen the lolly aisle in Woolworths? You're not alone on that, right?
But I do definitely make conscious choices. Like, yes, I have a bit of chocolate here and there,
Yeah.
but I have changed and it's been forced upon me. But I did give up drinking before I got the diagnosis of cancer. I thought if I'm going to be a counselor, if I'm sitting there in front of a patient, a client, I don't want to be a hypocrite. If I'm having a few drinks on a Friday night and I'm not dealing with my problems and I'm using smoking cigarettes or drinking, who am I to sit there and ask this person to change or sit with them and change? I think it starts with us. We do have to turn up for ourselves.
Right.
I think there is that element. We do have start turning up with ourselves and making conscious choices. But consumerism, it's so hard too, and we're bombarded with life in so many ways. But yeah, look, it's a challenging one. There's a lot of research if we do look after ourselves that we can have a longer life. I did do a lot of research in that with uni. Look, sometimes there's also when you're so trapped in trauma, it is very hard to be out of that. Yeah, I think that's a two-sided coin, and I think again we need to come together. And I don't think a person should be blamed. I don't know whether society has so much to be blamed, and there's so much pressure on us. Look at the media consumption of how we see somebody online. We see their front gardens. We don't actually see their back gardens. We don't understand the trauma behind that. We don't understand the need of why we need a cigarette or why people are vaping.
Yeah.
Why? Maybe we should get to the guts of why.
Yeah.
And that might address that question.
Yeah, that's a good thought.
Rather than blaming me because I had liver function because yes, I did put wrong foods in my body, but I was traumatized by everything I went through, not being out, IVF not working, my marriage was failing. Golly, we're humans.
Yeah.
On both sides, and we live in such a world that's so challenging.
Yeah. It's far more complex than black and white. It's never binary, is it? So.
No, and I just think, what? My reference is God just meets us where we are. Maybe we have to meet ourselves where we are.
It comes to mind the idea of acceptance being a big part of moving towards, mentioned Louise Hay, and of course she starts she was the person who introduced to me the concept of, the power of gratitude and the power of acceptance, right? So how do you get to a place where you accept the gifts that you've been given, even if they feel like poison at times, right?
Oh, I tell you, I've been on the floor. There's been some recent ones where I didn't know whether I can pick myself up.
Yeah.
But I'm not giving in and I'm not giving up. And
Why? Why are you not giving up?
I just feel I know it's not my time.
Yeah.
I don't care what the paper says. It's not my time.
Yeah.
And I just know that. And I had very big gut instincts before I was diagnosed with my cancer. Or the cancer a few years ago. I just had this, as soon as I started to get more cleaner with my body,
Mm.
connect to my beliefs that I had as a child, create a community where I felt safe as a child, like I did. We stayed in one area for 3 years, but three different houses, but I was able to stay at the one school rather than move, differently. I've actually gone back to that, and I know Eric Erickson, he talks about the psychosocial stages and that
Yeah.
if we miss a stage, we can go back. I believe I'm doing that.
So you're back to the 7 to 14 section where you're just
Well, a little bit, but
yeah.
I'm also probably living 20s where
Right.
I had
Yeah.
so much anxiety, and with the Ehlers-Danlos
Yeah.
syndrome, you're 1,000 times more likely to have anxiety due to
Right.
the autonomic system. So it's learning how I've had to manage that anxiety. I've been crippled at times where I've had social anxiety and I couldn't go out. So with my team and with my own education, I've had to put myself forward and just go, you know what if I did only have X amount of time? I need to make conscious choices in my life that I'm going to tick off not my bucket list, it's called a life list.
Yeah.
What's more important? Is it for me? I always dreamed as that child to write a book, to um, to be a teacher. Now I might not have been, and because of how life went and the illness, I can't be a teacher to school children, but I can be a teacher to adults and to people that want to actually listen to my story and learn from it.
Yeah.
So it's adapting, and picking myself up. But I'm not saying it's easy.
Yeah.
Every day is a journey. I'm on a journey for the rest of my life. I will be having psychology sessions, for the rest of my life. The health journey, but before I was diagnosed with cancer, I actually had to befriend the EDS. And I just don't see cancer as a threat anymore. I just get up and live, and I cry about my separation, I cry about other things. I just don't cry about cancer.
Yeah, I heard Gabor Mate talking about dating, dating your particular challenge, right? Like,
Oh, I love that.
courting it and getting to know
Yes.
it and appreciating it, which sort of sounds very strange, obviously, but the idea I'll ask this question. With all of those challenges in those days where you were locked in the house for years, where you were on the floor in despair, when you've overcome those to keep going and reconnect and achieve things that you're able to achieve, what is the gift of these challenges? What is the gift of your illness?
Learning to love myself, have a different relationship with myself. And really, I can see where I got lost in it all. And I hid behind everything and the disease, and I hid behind my marriage, I hid behind everything. And it's made me go, again, that Eric Erickson stage is, go back and live that 7 to 14-year-old's dream, the 20-year-old that I got married very early and I have no regrets, trauma unfortunately ruined our marriage, and he had cancer and I was his carer and he had many chronic illnesses. We saw each other so much, but the trauma for us both was just too much. But fortunately we're friends, we're good friends, and we share custody of our dog. So we have important roles to play.
It's very responsible of you both.
I know, the dog rules the world. But yeah, With brain fog again happening here, John.
Oh, what?
You better
The gift.
the
The
gift.
gift.
The gift. The gift. I see like every lesson is a blessing, and sometimes I can't see it at that time.
Yeah.
But I really I fall. And when I fall hard. But when I get back up, I get back 10,000 million times back up. And I'm back, But I fall and I'll keep falling, but that will help me. And I think, again, it's this resilience as a young child that I've had to be adapted. I've had to adapt to my environment. I believe the childhood I had was because I've had to, maybe it was setting me up for the adulthood I was going to have. I wanted to be a successful woman when I was younger, and then I ended up getting married and I got sick. It's like, but what I define success then is very different to finding success now. And I have no regrets. I've learned to find peace with my body, be beyond my body. And, I live in a body that needs to have some services like a car does a bit more often than the average car.
People still pay for those ones.
Yeah.
They still love them. They still look after them.
Yeah, I think I thought, who's going to love me? Like, honestly, after coming back out of marriage, and who will love me? Who will love me because I have a bag on my stomach? Who will love me because I have scars? But who wouldn't love me is all I got to say, because I've had to realize and really work hard. I'm a beautiful person, and someone one day will find that in me.
I'd like to ask you about outcomes. The Stoics, of which I'm a big fan, talk about memento mori, the moment of death, which is a signal to live. It's impossible that you haven't spent time thinking about, diseases. All of us are on a journey. What has that meant for you? Have you an accommodation with death? Do you understand it? Is it scary? Is it influence you, or do you ignore it? How do you deal with something that must be real, because doctors continually bring it up?
It's very real. And there's a few ways I'm going to go with this, but I think initially I did some meditation, and it was about meditating on your death. And that was prior to cancer.
Yeah.
And I just sort of like get up every day and have goals. So I deal with that. And even my GP says, look, you've done this for 30 years, just keep on doing it.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter. You've got your statistics, yes. And, outcome could be this, but just keep on doing what you're doing. They've known me for a long time. However, I've also mentored a lot of patients with the cancer and other people with EDS, and they've died. I recently lost my best friend, and he was the most amazing human being and advocate for this cancer. And we were best friends for 18 months, but the friendship was like 80 years. And I say, and I'm writing about it, it's about sitting in life and sitting in death and what that feels like. Because there's a lot of people that have totally ignored me and have not wanted to know me. And one person who's a nurse said to me, a friend, just said, they probably don't want to know because they're scared. They don't know how to deal with this.
Yeah.
And then there's the people that I've hardly known, or they're cancer survivors, and they're like around me. And again, it's finding your tribe. And I think I was through this when these other people that I've known for a long time, it's like, where are you? But they're not there. And then when I really lift the veil, it's like there was people there. But they've come in different forms, and I've had to be open to that. But look, I don't want to die, and I had to make big decisions last year when I was re-diagnosed. And I sort of call it the dark corridors and big decisions. And I'd just come back from Queensland. I didn't have the nicest time. I'd been crying for about 8 weeks. I knew something wasn't right. I then went jaundiced. I was in hospital. They were telling me it wasn't good down the emergency department. The cancer was back. Not my doctors, because my team treat me and speak to me in a very different manner. There was a very dark corridor because everything was closed, and I was walking towards that, and I knew that was death. And I was walking, and I'm facing you.
Yeah.
because I'm going to make big decisions, and I had to make decisions which I wrote down why I was going to live and not go down that hole and die. And I walked towards this darkness, and I was facing it. And as I faced it, do you know what happened, John? The most profound light
Wow.
and yellow of the buildings came to me, and I just had this glorious moment and said, it's not my time. And no matter other people coming into the room, I just said, I don't care what you say. I'm going to be on a motivational speaking stage in 5 years' time. I'm not dying. And yes, I've had to sit in it, can't get myself up. But I just feel that I believe in God. People believe in whatever they want to. I believe in God in my way. Um, God has been with me. How could I go wrong when I have God on my side?
Faith, to me, is belief without evidence. Is that a place that helps?
Faith over fear. That's what I said when I was re-diagnosed. I will live with faith over fear. I will live in the flow rather than fight.
Yeah. Wow.
And that has changed. You know, I look, we're all terminal. We are all terminal. And that's the thing, my message. We are all terminal.
Yeah. Death
Start
and
dealing with it.
taxes. Yeah.
You know that from your own story. You know, I was
Mm.
listening to that the other day, and
Mm.
it's we just don't know. We don't know. I've had someone that was talking about bile duct cancer to somebody else, and the person died very quickly. And yet that person who was talking about the other person
Mm.
died of a heart attack at 52, like
Yeah.
that.
Wow. Yeah.
So I don't know when my time is up. I don't
Yeah.
believe my time is up. And the statistics are very against me. But I'm not against me. I can get up every day and choose how I live. Yes, sometimes I'm very depressed and have anxiety or have crappy days, but I can choose to get up and wear color. I can choose to put makeup on my face. I can choose to say my gratitude. I can choose to be around the beautiful people that embody me with love, and I can remove, you know, things that are toxic, that I feel are toxic and not helping me, because if we were in an environment that isn't conducive to our health, research says that we lose 4 hours of our life a day. And I'm not
Wow.
willing to give that 4 hours away to anybody.
Yeah.
I'm still working on it, but you know, yeah, and I do a lot of, you know, meditation. I go to church on a Sunday. I do 3 hours of meditation. Well, about two and a half, or no,
Yeah.
1.5 or something like that a week.
Yeah.
And then I go to the gym, and while I'm doing gym, I listen to beautiful Christian songs about God being with me. And um, yeah, I'm just a believer, and
Yeah.
I believed as a child, and I lost it for a while.
Mm.
And I've just brought back all the things that really brought me joy. And my physio and I, we use cricket and things like that, and bringing all the things that I love. And we bring clay therapy in and all the things. I'm a very creative person.
Mm.
So I bring all that in, and I've just found a little place where I actually have a garden, and I just go and sit out there and I be at peace. And when I was diagnosed last year, and I was living in a granny flat out with someone's house,
Yeah.
I just sat and I just listened, and I really, really listened, because I just thought this might be my last time of listening. And it's not about taking the motorway and
Mm.
having everything in life, like you were talking about in your interview. You had, you know, got everything in life. You thought you'd got, you know, the corporate world, that how the children. No, the magic is taking, you know,
Mm.
the the back roads,
Yeah.
seeing the view.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not about having a, you know,
Yeah.
$1 million house. It's about finding happiness on a $30,000 income, you know,
Very much.
finding joy in eating a piece of, you know, fruit,
Mm.
sitting, patting my dog. I
That's
can't change what's happened to me, but I can change how I turn up for myself, even if it's very strong, you know, and challenging some days.
yeah, absolutely brilliant. I love that uh, insight. Thank you for sharing. There's you know, in my experience, that staring that dark man, dark corridor in the staring him down, there's that sense of, maybe some people would see it as avoidance, but acceptance offers freedom. Do you feel free?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Like, but the first time I was diagnosed, I felt like I was a little bit more of a victim. Yes,
Yeah.
I got up and I was doing costumes for cancer and getting in green tutus. And, that's where my
Yeah.
advocacy started. And I thought, if I'm going down, you
Yeah.
know, I'm going down with fun. And all my team joined me. My physios would get dressed up and everything. And I just thought, I'm going down. And I maybe thought I was going down. Now I'm just like, I'm not thinking whether I'm going down. I'm just living.
Yeah, absolutely. That's brilliant. Such a wonderful sort of energy to sit in. What would you share with others? So, with challenges, not just, illness, they can be challenged by, situational distress or, what's going on in their lives or for others they care about or their mental health there's many things that put us into this desperate place. What would you seem to have embraced you so powerfully yourself. What would you share with others to help them find that same
I think, look after
activity?
yourself. And especially as a carer, I was a carer to my husband, he was a carer to me. And I think we were too connected. We didn't have a lot of support when we lived overseas. And we didn't have, like, if we had had more support, our marriage would have been
Mm,
able to thrive more. But it was killed, there was nothing in the marriage bank
yeah,
because we were just surviving.
yeah,
So I would say, one, turn up for yourself, especially if you're a carer
mm,
and people feel guilty necessarily about, they need to be there. But really, if you don't fill your own cup up, don't expect to be able to fill other people's cup up.
yeah,
That is true, and especially when you're a parent or you're a carer for somebody else.
yeah,
And even if you're unwell, just, you know, choosing wherever you can have the orange over the chocolate.
mm,
There's so much evidence that states that it's just these little choices, and I know how challenging it is. I took 9 times to give up smoking,
mm,
but I would never take a drink again. But I understand, I've been there, what it is like to have a drink on a Friday night and to down, a few glasses and not think about the childlessness
mm,
and where my life is. And I've been there, I've sat in it.
mm,
I've sat in life, I've sat in death, and I've sat in everything in between.
mm,
And I would just say, just make subtle changes and don't expect your New Year's Eve to go, I mean, New Year's Day to be running around a block. It's just taking one step
mm,
and then taking another step the next day. Pace yourself and educate yourself
mm.
and be around beautiful people. There's beautiful people in our community. Find beautiful people.
I love that. That's a huge piece. Finding beautiful people. What would say people out there are just listening to this and they're inspired like me to hear you and your story and your wisdom, but they're not sick or they don't feel like they've got a huge challenge themselves. Knowing life, has unexpected turns. What would you say to them, or how would you help them start to build a care team that works for the worst times they're in, not just the best?
I would say educating themselves on well-being, reading books. As I said, education opens many doors. Go to seminars, listen to podcasts, try and build these, skills up. Now, I'm often told that I'm strong and I'm stronger than these other people. But I've had to learn to adapt. It's like somebody having, no arm and they have to
Mm,
eat with their legs. My brain has had to be pushed to be creative with how I achieve things, even how I have conversations, how I achieve, doing degrees
mm,
and study and things like that. So, yeah, find find a good GP, in the health,
mm,
so they'll advocate for you. They'll pick up the phone if you aren't feeling well.
mm,
Um, connect to really lovely people in your community, that you trust and believe that if you don't incline to go speak to a psychologist, your reverend or people at your church or your spiritual belief, whatever you believe in, having a connection or a support group. It's just, and also doing creative therapies or nature therapy. You could take walks and be mindful. Get off the motorway.
Yeah.
And start looking for the preciousness. Even, eating a piece of chocolate, don't have the whole bar. Have one piece, savor it.
I love that theory. I have a theory. I call it the Tim Tam theory. So
Ah,
I'll share it with you.
tell me.
The idea, we love, a lot of people love Tim Tams and rightly so. They are amazing. And that first Tim Tam is just extraordinary, right? When you're with it. And you think the next one is going to be as good. And it is pretty good, but it's just a fraction less extraordinary than the first one. By the time I got to the end of the packet, right, which was, more often than it should, the last Tim Tam was actually quite a chore, right? So it's the diminishing marginal returns of excellence on a Tim Tam, right? That's the theory. So really, if we stayed at just one, right, we'd have nothing but extraordinary. It's only when we keep trying to push and squeeze that same experience out of stuff that doesn't offer it, can't offer it, that we start to get into this, sort of neediness, right? Like, I want this idea. So if we extrapolate that to everything in life, that sample, that moment of extraordinary, and if you move on to the next extraordinary, you never lose that. You're always one extraordinary thing after another.
I think having diverse, connect back to your childhood. What did you like? Like, why are you eating that packet of Tim Tams? Start distracting yourself with other things that you really want, that was on your life list. Don't know why they call it bucket list. I don't like it. It's a life list. We should be enjoying life, not thinking about death. Live, I'm not dying, I'm living.
Yeah.
I said before.
Right up to the last breath I'm living.
Yeah, and actually I remember leaving a job once and I worked right up to the last minute and people go, "What are you doing that for?" And I'm like, "Because this is how I want to show up."
Yeah.
And
that's brilliant. Yeah.
Yeah, like the choice, but again, that Tim Tam can be seen to that in the motorway and the B road.
Yeah, I love that. It's get off the motorway, get off the freeway and start
to, and there's a beautiful book by Brett Lilly. He's one of my mentors. And that's about discovering your athlete within and going back to your childhood as well. It's interesting because that's how my thoughts were, and I was already. So when the universe aligns you with the right people, people will come. He's all about adapting life, back to, the things that brought you joy, and we get lost in life.
We do.
And, with our grief, and we get trapped, and just taking little steps, it's little tiny steps to find ourselves again.
That's lovely. How about we lock in a date now in 5 years' time, as since you're a motivational speaker, right? We'll get an update on all your theories.
I love it, and I said that to one of my doctors because I did socks for cancer to raise money, and I said to him, and he's got so many socks as gifts, and I said to him, I'm going to be in your office in 5 years' time giving you another crazy pair of socks because I give my doctors like the gastroenterologist poo socks or toilet roll socks.
Right.
So there we go. We got a date. I've got a date with you and I've got a date with the professor.
I'll get a set of esophageal socks or throat socks or something.
I could get, yes. I'm going to have to come over and meet you and give you a pair soon.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing so honestly, so openly, so courageously today. It's been inspiring to talk to you, and your work, your encouragement for the community is inspiring as well. So congratulations on just being, just making life as
getting to 51.
As amazing,
what a miracle.
As amazing and as normal and as full of potential as possible. And thank you for the work you're doing for people. And
Thank you.
thank you for being on Kintsugi Heroes.
Yeah, I
Right.
love it. And thanks, Ian, for creating it. He's a magical man too.
Absolutely. So well done, Karen, and all the best. And we'll talk
Thank you.
very soon.
Yes.
Cheers.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Kintsugi Heroes. Thank you to Colin Lilly for permission to use Broken as our theme music for this series. If you enjoyed this conversation, share the podcast with a friend and let us know by leaving a rating and review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. If you'd like to support Kintsugi Heroes and the stories we share, head to kintsugiheroes.com.au and follow the instructions to make a tax-deductible donation. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.